Hi guys, I'm over here. This way, over here. Check out over here. We're going to continue on with slave life on a southern plantation. This is part 2. Remember, every time you see a number, that likely means that there is a question. Well, not likely means there is a question. So, housing, clothing, and food. Most slaves lived in one-room cabins. The cabins were made of logs. They were not well built. As a result, some roofs could not stop rain or snow. If a slave cabin had windows, it didn't have glass. When the rain and snow came in, the dirt floor of the cabin, sorry I yawned. The dirt floor of a cabin turned into mud. Slaves didn't have any furniture. They slept on a pile of rags or straw. Some were given a blanket, but many were not. House slaves often lived in the plantation house. They might have had a space to sleep near the kitchen, laundry, or stable. House slaves usually had better clothing than slaves in the field because they often received their slave owners' old clothes. Some slaves received shoes, many did not receive any. Slaves received only enough food to keep them alive. Most plantation owners gave a ration of food at the beginning of the week. It consisted of corn, fat, and possibly a bit of bacon. Slaves might have also received bread, flour, some vegetables, and some buttermilk. Because this diet was low in vitamins and minerals, many slaves became ill. Some could grow their own vegetables or do some fishing on Sundays. Still, most slaves were hungry much of the time. Many died from illness or the combination of malnutrition and intense labor. House slaves often had better diets than the field hands. They prepared the food, for one thing. In addition, they could usually eat whatever was left from their master's meals. Look out for question 6. The psychology of slavery. Owners wanted to remind their slaves that they had no value as human beings, so totally dehumanizing all of these people. White owners and overseers humiliated their slaves. Here's one example of the many ways in which slaves were humiliated. Answer this question. How old are you? It's a simple question, but if you were a slave on a southern plantation, you did not know your birthday or how old you were. Slaves could not learn how to read or write, so they couldn't write dates or events. One of the worst aspects of slavery was that owners could separate families. It was common for mothers to be separated from their children. It is painful to imagine the agony of a mother as they took her baby from her arms, a baby she would never see again. White owners created something called slave codes. Slave codes prohibited slaves to learn to read and write. If slaves ran away, they could be killed. Slaves could not vote or attend school. Slave codes are kind of like slave laws. Question 7 there. So you have your questions. Is this quote primary or secondary? What did slave owners use to control their slaves? Put the following in order. List 5 jobs a slave could be completing. Imagine living in a house like this. Write down 5 feeling words that would describe your perspective of living in this home. Compare and contrast house slaves to field slaves in the following categories. So for this, I want you to literally write like house slave, ... describe the living situation. Field slave, ... and then describe their situation. Last one, reflection. Write a 30-word summary of what is being read, what was about, and yes, 30 words exact. And you know I will count those words. We go on, we have a primary source we'll cover in the next video. Then we talk about Crispus Attucks in the Boston Massacre, who was an escaped slave. There's images to go along with that one. Then we get into the last 3 readings, and we are almost done. We're getting there. We're getting there. All right. See you all in this video. Bye.